Because some people might say, well, hang on a minute, it might be you that sort of set it up. You know, that you might be in a bit deeper than what you're saying. You're shaking your head.
You heard from William Jasper. He told you he attended as a result of a witness summons. In January 1996, he was seen by the police in connection with matters affecting him, and he was interviewed. He gave the police oral and written accounts of matters he'd been involved in at Retterdon. He gave a detailed account, but it was hard to remember where he was. He said he did not know Michael Steele or Jack Wilmes, had never seen either of them before or had any association with them. The day before he gave evidence was the first time he knew he might be required to come here to give evidence in this trial. In cross-examination by Mr. Lederman, he said he'd been arrested on the 15th of January 1996 in connection with another matter. He said he was an associate of major criminals, sometimes concerned with major robberies and drugs, including cocaine. The drugs involved sums of £300,000, that sort of amount. The criminals were those who had no inhibitions about shooting each other if they fell out. He wrote the statement at Forest Gate Police Station. He would prefer in court not to name the names he had previously named. The question as to whether he was frightened of them. He said, "You could say that is the reason. I prefer not to name them." He said he would not have described them in a full statement about killing if it was not correct, because to do so, it could happen that he could almost inevitably be shot. He told you that he took police officers on a journey once or twice, and it was he who directed them. The route was at his direction. He had taken that journey before. He was pointing out to the officers that route for something that he was a witness to. At that time, he was in a stolen car, a Fiat Uno, and there was a man with him in a car with a holdall. In the holdall was a pump-action shotgun and a handgun. He looked in the holdall during the journey. The holdall was taken by the person down a country lane. The person went over a gate into a field and returned with 2 holdalls. He was not able to say whether both holdalls contained anything. They were put on the floor in the passenger side. He then drove back towards Essex in the Woodford direction and dropped the man in a wine bar. He was paid £5,000 for doing that. He had been asked to do it a week or maybe less before. He was not prepared to name the person who had asked him, and he was not prepared to name the man in the car. The passenger on the journey out in the back was wearing hospital gloves. He had not seen the contents of the holdall when he set out. He saw the contents halfway through the journey when the passenger got out to meet someone. He said he was in the Upminster area around about midnight or sometime an hour before or an hour after. So at that stage, he was giving himself a 2-hour bracket, either an hour before midnight or an hour after. He said having agreed to do the drive, he did not know the purpose of the journey. When the man returned to the car in the lane, he got in the passenger side. They had gone over a bridge, but he did not know which bridge. He thought it was a couple of minutes away or a minute. He looked at Exhibit 3, the plan, and saw on it a route left into Rectory Lane. He was asked if that was where he took the police, and he said it was possibly so, but he could not remember if it was that bridge. There was a give way sign. He was supposed to give way, but he did not, and his passenger was very unhappy. As to the date, he said he could have told the police that it was the end of November or the beginning of December. It was unusual to name names. In cross-examination by Mr. Monday, he said he did not know the defendants at all and had no contact with them before that day. Before the night drive, he had never been to the area at all. He could drive from A to B and not know the area. He was not lost, and he knew he was in the area of Retterdon on the way back. He said he was shown a map by the police to see if he could point the place out, but he could not remember it, and he could not remember if he did point it out. He could not remember pointing somewhere out at all. He had read in the papers of the killings of 3 men in a car, and the papers had said Essex. Howell Green did not ring a bell, but it might be that Howell Green was the place he pointed to. He remembered a garden nursery and a car sales place. Then again, as to the time he was asked, about the time again, and he said he arrived there around about 12ish, midnight, but he could not remember what day of the week it was, and whether it was a weekend or weekday. He probably knew the A127, but he was not good at reading maps. He looked at the Retterdon Turnpike on the map and said, "We went past this at first because I couldn't get my bearings." We turned around and went back to the Retterdon Turnpike. He was looking for certain objects to get his bearings. He did not say, "That farm must be round here." It was the policeman who said that. He had other problems in his head, and he was thinking about other things, not just this. That time he told the policeman to turn left, the nursery rang a bell, but names did not ring any bells. I don't know if Rectory Lane was the lane. There were gates on both sides, opposite each other. As to the gate on the left, you had to leave the road to get to the lane, and the man climbed over the left gate. I turned round and waited half an hour, or 3/4 of an hour. The time was getting on for about 1 o'clock. As to whether there were houses at the bottom, he thought there were, but he did not drive that far. It was a few feet to the gate, and there was a field the other side of the gate. He could not see what was on the other side of the field. He had taken drugs himself, but he did not see what they had to do with it. He was talking of taking drugs that night. He said he admitted he had a snort of coke before he arrived at the gate. He said maybe the passenger had a snort of coke. He at first said he was not prepared to say if the man snorted the coke, but then told that was what he told the police, that it had happened. He said the man did snort coke that night. The man did it more than once before he got out of the car. The man was wearing tracksuit tops and bottoms and gloves. Mr. Jasper said he was arrested for something else entirely than this. He was now in prison. He was prosecuted for offences for which he'd been arrested, and he was not really worried about these offences. As far as he knew, the man was not arrested for anything and was not in trouble. He had not told anyone else anything what had happened that night. He had first mentioned what happened that night to get an easier time from the law, and he was hoping to get something out of it to get an easier time. After he was interviewed, he was kept in a police station a couple of days. After that, he was not arrested or prosecuted for anything that had happened that night. He agreed he knew what a gun sounds like. He said he was awake in the car while waiting, but he did not hear any gunshots. He said he was possibly aware that a record was made of what he had said at the police station, and somebody told him that the documents were going to be disclosed to the defence lawyers. He was told what was going to happen a few months back, possibly earlier, in 1997. He said he was not frightened of most things, but to a certain degree, he would describe himself as a frightened man. He had not been threatened. In re-examination to Mr. Parkins, he said the passenger was wearing hospital gloves and trainers. The visit to Retterdon was his only visit, and it was done in darkness. The directions came from the passenger. He was finding his way by way of lights at night. It was daylight on the 15th of January, and it was easier with daylight than dark. When he spoke to the police in January, he did name some people, because his account was not made up. Members of the jury, that was his evidence in relation to what he said. He did a date that he did not identify, and at a time which he gave as about midnight. But you remember, first of all, said an hour plus or an hour minus. It is a matter for you what you conclude in relation to that witness. You are aware, of course, there is no evidence from a pathologist or from a doctor who attended at the time of death, and that evidence may be partly directed to suggest a time as around midnight. You will remember the other evidence as to the occupants of the Range Rover, that they were all going out that night to dinner in Romford, and you remember the note which Tate had left, as to which there is an admission. The evidence of Diana Evans, Donna Jaggers, being taken to buy a new dress for the night out. You will also remember the evidence in relation to the two passengers who were not driving in the Range Rover, of their contact with their own mobile phones, one with it between his legs, and the other having his middle finger through the lead to it. Equally, you will remember the evidence of the scientist of the mobile phones throughout that evening, up to midnight and thereafter. It is entirely for you to judge the evidence of Mr. Jasper, to see where it takes you, but you will want to take all the evidence into account in that case, just as you will want to take all the evidence into account in relation to the conclusions you come to on other evidence. Again, you do not take against Mr. Jasper just because he is at present in prison and deals with his evidence of his character in relation to his association with other criminals. You look at his evidence When he starts giving it entirely objectively, and he comes before you just the same as any other witness, it is for you to make your mind up about it.